Welcome back to Plat Chat Overwatch. We got episode 257 here. We got Matt, Rakattack, Ocie. How's it going? How we doing?
Doing well.
Pretty good.
Doing well.
Pretty good.
Doing well.
Pretty good. Pretty good. I have a ridiculous story that has nothing to do with it.
Yes. I knew this would happen.
So-
That's why I didn't do a long-winded intro. I knew you would jump straight into it.
I'm sure all of us in esports, we get like really just like bizarre emails and like other different types of things and like stuff that you're just kind of like, okay, like this isn't real, whatever. So when I get those, I just kind of click them. I like kind of like, oh, that's kind of cool. Then I just like that probably doesn't really exist though, and then I just close it. So Jake this week was like, yeah, I have to go to China, and I was like, oh, what are you going to China for? He's like, oh, I'm going for this event, whatever. And then I remembered, I was like, wait, I got an email about this, and that was one of the emails I thought like wasn't a real thing. And then Jake was like, he responded, and he's like, yeah, this is like that was like a really, it's real, like I'm actually going. And I was like, oh wow, that's kind of bizarre. So shout out Jake, he's somewhere in China right now, allegedly doing this event. So it'd be awesome.
Well, a few people in China.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that, like within Winthrop, because there's like a lot of pro players have like kind of retired from Overwatch, so like they're all like, we're going to China. I'm like, oh,
look, I get a
cool.
cold email of like, hey, we're doing an event in China, you want to come? I'm like, probably that might not really exist. So I didn't. Jake was like, yeah, put me on the next flight. So
Okay. What did you learn about? That you'll take emails more seriously moving forward?
that I should just.
What's the lesson here?
I should just do what Jake does. Whatever anybody sends me an email, just respond, I'm in.
I mean, sure. Well, okay. Surely, there was. Yeah, never mind. I don't think. There was probably an agent or something involved, Matt. But you know all about that. So
Yeah.
Maybe next time have it figured out. But yeah, Jake's in China. So good luck, Jake. Have fun. It's called like Mecha Break or something, right?
Yeah. It looks kind of cool.
Yeah, looking kind of cool. Heard great things about it. There you go. Another little announcement that was made just this morning. That was really quite an announcement. But BlizzCon was announced. BlizzCon is coming back. And next year, actually, it's announced a little bit in advance. So you can get your travel and booking sorted out in advance if you'd like to come to Irvine. What is it, September 2026?
Like put a month to it?
Yeah, like there's actual dates in the trailer here.
I think there's already a date.
Yep. So they announced this. There's like a festival of some kind going on now, like Southwest. What was it called in Austin? Southwest by
Southwest.
Okay, I don't really get it, but yeah, I think they're over there. They're gonna talk about it, announce it. And so this trailer came out. Ocie, have you been to BlizzCon before? Were you there last time?
No, I wasn't relevant at all last time that a BlizzCon was held. I mean, nobody knew who I even was. So no, I've never been to a BlizzCon. I've never been to the West Coast, actually. Just never been over there.
Really?
Wow.
You got to get out to this BlizzCon. I mean, you got a bit to plan. I mean, September of 2026. I mean, God, I mean, that is ages. I mean,
yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah.
Rack, were you there last time?
Nah, only time I was out there was the 2022 Grand Finals.
Oh, right. Yeah, because we had it in Anaheim. Yeah, the playoffs took place. Yeah, for sure. Are you hyped? Anything you want to see? You know, if you've never been to an actual BlizzCon before, like, is that something that interests you, like the other Blizzard games? Or are you only like Overwatch oriented, or?
I started with like StarCraft Brood War, So
I
started there, but I feel like StarCraft is kind of one of their games that's kind of, I don't want to say it's dying out, but I don't know. It's just like StarCraft Brood War is more of for the Koreans. They love that game, but in NA it's like not as popular. So I don't think they'll have anything there for that, but it's still like cool. Like I think the other Blizzard games are interesting, and I'd probably have fun going just because I like meeting people as well. But probably the main reason I'd want to go is if they hold another World Cup, which is honestly pretty iffy. Like a lot of people took the announcement as, yeah, a World Cup is definitely happening. I'm not 100% sure about that, but we'll see, because I'll probably go if they hold that.
Yeah, they don't hold BlizzCon just to hold the World Cup. Just because BlizzCon exists doesn't mean the World Cup.
Well, you got to be vocal about it. You got to voice your support, Matt. They have a year and a half to plan this.
Don't voice your support too early. It's fucking September 2026. You voice support now, they fucking forget about it by then. I mean, wait a little bit. Start voicing it in September. Campaign. A year from now. I want to see them announce other like like I would love to see them bring back StarCraft in some capacity. And I'd like to see them take a little bit more risks as opposed to just, you know, Overwatch continue as a live service, WoW continue as a live service, Diablo do that. Like I've always thought like a fucking sick game. Like, why don't they have like a you know, God of War style of game or something like a
What?
fucking Elden Ring style game? Yeah, like imagine like if there was a fucking like a God of War style of game and like I don't know, they use the Warcraft universe, right? Like that would be fucking sweet. Like why don't they make different games outside of, you know, they just make the same like kind of like games over and over, right? Like I'd like to see them do something a little bit different. 2026 we may get Overwatch 3.
Hopefully Overwatch 1. Hopefully we get the 2 removed.
just remove the numbers. Just it's Overwatch.
Yeah. But obviously there was no BlizzCon the past year. When was the last World Cup? 2023? 2020? No, 2024. No, 2023. Yeah. So it's been 3 years at that point between BlizzCons. Matt, you're a businessman. You know, you're around town. You understand the dealings behind the back. A little bit of that. How do you explain this kind of like cadence, like 3 years between BlizzCon? Do you think this would be like it would be like, oh, we're having BlizzCon, like a bit now and then, or would it be like every 3 years, or like what do you think?
I mean, what 3 years?
Because it used to be every year.
3 years aligns with basically every WoW expansion launch, right? Every year and a half kind of aligns with like a yes. I mean, you know, if you have some big WoW news, right? Especially what they announced, like the some kind of like World Soul Saga, right? With 3 expansions, the last one. So you're basically through this one. You'd probably be near the end of that next one, and then getting ready for the final stage of it. So then you kind of are like, what's next, right? It's like probably almost 30 years of Warcraft at that point. So you're probably doing something there. How many years of Overwatch would it be? Would that be 10 years of Overwatch?
Well, Overwatch was officially released, what, May 2016?
Yes, it would be like about 10 years of Overwatch almost.
Yeah.
Past 10 years of Overwatch, right? So maybe there's like a 10-year Overwatch thing. I'd imagine, you know, do something for every anniversary. There's probably something big there. But then, like Ocie said, I imagine there's some revitalization of like this. Like the StarCraft IP is sweet. Like there's no reason for it to just sit there dead. Like do something with it, right? If you don't want to make an RTS, that's fine. But use the universe, use characters, use the, you know, use the units, just make something cool with it. I hope they do something.
Yeah, we got Ocie here. What do you want to see? You're a StarCraft fan or Brood War, I guess, because Brood War is the more competitive.
Yeah, you know. it's funny because like I feel like a first-person shooter that's like based on StarCraft. They almost, I don't want to say they did it with Overwatch, but they kind of did it with Overwatch. Like even some of the perks are straight up Brood War things. I'm not kidding. Like they have like
I'm curious.
Yeah, they actually have like a perk for soldier that's the stim pack. That's the same thing the Marines have in StarCraft.
Right. Yeah.
And like they have the shield battery for Symmetra. It's the same name of the building that the Protoss use to repair their shields, right? It's like it's a lot of design that's like kind of inspired. And also if you have the Protoss in Brood War, and in all the StarCraft games, they have their shields. That's a mechanic they literally just put into Overwatch with Onyx. they put in the same exact thing. It's kind of funny, like the armor, shields, everything. Like they kind of just added that to Overwatch. But like I feel like a first-person shooter could be good, but it might like overlap with Overwatch. So I don't know. I mean, they could just pull a StarCraft 3. You know, I feel like with StarCraft to revitalize the IP, you almost just make another game. But that could be super interesting. You know,
they could literally just make basically Halo using the StarCraft universe, and that would be
true.
Totally
that's true.
Halo,
no, a game like Halo, right?
Yeah,
like just
I
use
guess
the StarCraft IP.
The IP is awesome, so yeah, get a first-person shooter going. I mean, you have Overwatch, which has like great engine, you know, great tools. Like they really figured out how to make a first-person feel good, right? So, you know, maybe yeah, they can definitely pull something like that off. Yeah, for sure. All right, we're excited about BlizzCon. I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point the next 18 months.
We'll all be there. Put it on your calendars.
That's a long time, Matt. I don't know where I will be in 18 months.
I'll probably make it.
Yeah, we'll probably all make it. Hopefully we're all there in 18 months.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. Maybe I'm like in Nepal or something. I don't know. You know, like in a monastery. Who knows?
Ominous out of you. Okay.
It's not a bad thing, Matt. Just meditating and thinking about life, the meaning of life, stuff like that. Could be a good thing. All right, this episode is brought to you by FACEIT. We'll be talking about OWCS, but first, let's talk about the FPL. We got FACEIT Pro Pugs. FACEIT doing a lot of stuff so far in the 25, introducing a lot of new systems that we haven't really had previously in the Overwatch ecosystem, at least at this level. It's definitely a bit of a vibe shift, I feel like, the past couple of weeks here. So FPL was launched. There was, some of the players were like, oh, can you figure this stuff out? So they're actually like patching the way FPL functions to make it accommodate pro players more. One of the criticisms was that the opening hours where you could queue, it wasn't that great because, teams have scrims, so they can't really play during those hours in the first place. So they've announced this. There's some changes coming to FPL. FPL EMEA has updated its queue times to better fit player schedules. Now open from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. CT and 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. CT. So if you're a late night grinder, EMEA, you'll be playing until 2 a.m. over there. FPL NA remains on the same schedule for now. The leaderboard point distribution has changed. Wins now grant 6 points, down from 7. With -4 for losses, win streak bonuses are at +2 per win, previously +3 on Fridays and Saturdays. Wins will be worth 7 points, with streaks earning 3 per win, encouraging engagement throughout the week. So, they want this to be a thing throughout the week. You queue up, and, you don't just, like, get lead early and then you're just kind of like AFK. It's like, no, if you grind the last couple of days there before the leaderboard concludes, then you're going to be rewarded for it. So, right here, we got the standings. For FPL up top here we got Lukemino, Renko, Hawk. When Hawk was on the standings, I was like, whoa, Hawk still got it. Rakattack, how's your kind of FPL journey going?
It was good. I'm one of the older dudes, so I actually couldn't play that much. The 8 p.m. opening was a little late for me, but I remember the last day, which was, I guess, yesterday morning. It was a fight for rank 1. It was fun, but like, I'm glad they are fixing it because Luke Mino and Renko clearly, as you can see, are like so far ahead that like
they fucking slept. Jesus.
People were just like, all right, well, I can't catch up to rank 2, but I'll play for like top 10 and stuff like that. But they were queuing the final night together, like back and forth, rank 1. So it was cool to see.
Yeah. Is there anyone that when you queue like up with them, when you team up with them, Rack, is there anyone you're like, yeah, I got this pair on my team? Like, we're definitely winning that one.
Not really. It's more interesting like having the lesser known players perform good. Like, of course, everyone knows the top players, but not all the top players queue at the same time. So you're gonna get like some new names, new upcoming talent. Hopefully they do good. Sometimes they don't. But, it's if they do good, people are going to know them.
Yeah. Ocie, do you think FPL is great to kind of like allow people to play in that kind of like ecosystem, right? To be in an environment more that's kind of like more suited to improve and play alongside really good players compared to your typical Overwatch ranking?
Yeah, it's definitely better than ranked, right? I think it is giving that experience. I think one interesting thing it does is, for those lower kind of level players in like tier 2, it gives them a chance to play at a bit of a higher level, play with a bunch of different players, get to know people. So like the ability to build connections there, I think one thing that was kind of present, Rack, I'm sure you know this, but like back during Overwatch 1 days, like the breaks between the tiers were really hard. Like between tier 3 and tier 2 and between tier 2 and tier 1, like unless you knew someone, you just weren't going up. Even if you were maybe good enough, like even if you were good enough as a tier 3 player, sometimes you'd just be stuck there for like a year in limbo. And same thing with like tier 2 or whatever. So I feel like FPL kind of reduces the impact of that. It might reduce the impact of that. Another interesting thing is for the average player, normally you don't get to hear comms. Normally you don't get to hear scrim comms. I think it's nice that you actually get to hear players like try and comm and like have that resource available. So for people who just want to learn, FPL is actually a pretty good thing to watch because you get to like get that in that comms and see the fight plans, see what players are thinking, and I think that's very valuable.
It's basically the closest thing you get to watching like a match or scrim, like while
Right.
in the comms. I also think it's a great point where No, back. I think it's obviously been less with OWCS than in the past, but there was a good amount of nepotism. I think in the Overwatch League, those GMs they were pretty friendly with everybody else, and they were just kind of like, I mean, there were so many times we saw the same players like recycle through different teams time and time again. It's like, oh, we already seen this before. Like we know how this is gonna go, but this gives an opportunity for some of those players. Like you make a name for yourself in FPL, it's pretty hard to deny somebody like that a spot on like one of those teams, or even to just kind of move up a little bit. So that's why I like it. It also, Overwatch is such a team centric game that there are good players on probably tier 3 and tier 2 teams, that just the rest of their team's not really that awesome, and it's pretty difficult in Overwatch to stand out. So this gives them an opportunity to play solo, play with better players like Rack, and I mean, maybe Johnny, if you make it there, they could play with you, but and get noticed.
Yeah, I'm not making it, bro. I'm not making it. Maybe something for us, Matt, are the ranked pugs they introduced.
True.
It's a new 5 versus 5 competitive queue. We used the LFG system to handpick teammates, ensuring intense and high-level matches. The first PlayStation last week was a success. Unlike typical in-game experiences where mics are often silent, FACEIT pugs encourage communication, making teamwork and coordination a core part of the game. Many creators like J3, Tonicky, Skiesti, Questron have already enjoyed the rank pugs with their communities. This mode also introduces hero and map bans, mirroring OWCS settings for a more strategic and competitive experience. The next PlayStation kicks off Thursday at 6 p.m. CET, ET, open to club members. Clubs, FACEIT's MMO-style guild system, help unite like-minded players for the best experience. So, we got a link here, fce.gg/Plat Chat -pugs, and you can kind of like get into this experience yourself, try it out. Like I said, it's way more vocal. So you're kind of trying. You're not on the level of FPL. You're not playing with the pros, but you kind of get to play in an environment.
But you don't have me like soft throwing your ranked games. Yeah. So like that's
exactly. There's no wrecking ball. With no mic, not in voice. That kind of just does their own thing. People do actually try. So this is where we could make it, Matt. You and me.
It is kind of funny though, like somewhere that like the selling point is like people here will actually try, like as opposed to the ranked in game where people don't really try. It's like kind of funny. But I also think like the using comms, like when I get on Overwatch and I play like some ranked, like it's tough to get people talking.
We try our best. We go in there and like
we try our best.
Let's go. We're going to dive in, and like people are just,
and then like
they're like shut up.
1 out of every 3 games you get people talking. It's it's a lot of they're talking at each other in not nice way. So get in here. You play with some like-minded people who obviously want to improve, want to get better. Trying to get better and ranked and whatnot in general. So it's a pretty cool experience.
Yeah. Give this a good old try. It's a lot of fun. I know Jaws was in there. This is straight up Jaws alley. Jaws loves to try out here, and he played with Jaw 3 and a few others. Also, I guess the third thing then here is the clubs. Clubs are a new moderated MMO-style guild system that revolutions in the way you play competitively. Clubs allow anyone, from a large streamer to a small group of friends, to create and interact with and grow a community of players. Clubs allow like-minded players to create lobbies and easily find a stack to queue up for with ranked Overwatch 2 pugs together. Something we've been asking about for a long time. We're like, where's the guild system in Overwatch? A way to just like build a community. You can see who's in line very seamlessly. So I'm really happy that FACEIT introduced this. Rack, you have a bit of a you have a bit of a guild going. Have you started something up there?
Yeah, we got the rack pack on FACEIT.
The rack pack.
Just kind of a text channel that people drop images in, and that's been it so far. I don't know how to utilize it yet, but I'll be probably looking into it.
Matt, should we spin up a Plat Chat club, you think?
I mean, as long as you are the one who owns it and I can just drop in and post memes and say what's up, then I'm good with it.
Yeah, but like this is great because I feel like in Overwatch, you get a group of friends or whatever, but like how often do you actually like add a random player you've never met before? How often do you add them to your friends list?
I do quite often because I think it's funny to just kind of
I met a few that are like great
random people in ranked. Yeah, so like, but yeah, it is kind of rare. I also think I'm sure all of us kind of experienced it. Like as you kind of get older and like everybody's kind of doing different things, it's hard to get your like friend group to play at the same time. Like everybody's just doing their own thing. So to like have a spot where you can maybe organize like play, set like a you get to the point where you're old when you have to like almost schedule game time with your friends, and like this is probably something that helps.
Yeah, for sure. The club's beta will continue to grant access to the ranked Pugs beta throughout this duration, and the clubs created now will remain intact after the official launch. Previously, club members were invited to Pugs beta based on skill level. Now, anyone who joins the club will be invited to the current or next wave, regardless of rank. Players joining during a beta wave will be flagged instantly. Existing Overwatch club partners will receive FACEIT points through club leaderboards for remaining beta waves, making participation even more rewarding. So, make sure you use our link again, fce.gg/platchat-pugs. And get involved with FACEIT. They're doing a lot of great stuff for the scene in general. So I'm excited to see how this continues to develop, because they're certainly like on the ball. They're making changes. They're trying to improve all of these systems they got going on. So yeah, really excited to see what they do for the rest of 2025. But there you go. FACEIT. Let's jump into the weekend's action. EMEA concluded in OWCS. We got our teams who qualified to China finally. It was an amazing weekend, honestly. Some great matches. Some great competition. Where I think a lot of the teams who were left standing going into this weekend, we all saw a possibility where they could make it or maybe fall through. It was very competitive throughout. But I want to kick things off with EMEA here. The slingshot theory did not end up working out at the end of the day. It wasn't quite enough to get the ultimates over the hump there. But quite a bit of Mauga being played here, unlike NA, where it was a bit more dive-oriented. Ocie, I know you were away for a little bit this past week here. Did you get a chance to watch these matches this past weekend, and anything that stood out to you?
Yeah, I did get to watch them, and I also watched the grand final stuff because I came back for that. But what's nice is most of the OWCS days were just my travel days, like on the weekends, so I was able to like watch all the matches at the airport. And I think like that difference with the Mauga being played, I don't think it's necessarily Mauga being like the best possible option. I think it's more of these teams in EMEA, many of them just like Mauga. I'm just going to be straight up. They just have a hero pool that is built for Mauga. And that is why they like to play it. That's why they're willing to take the mirror. I mean, we saw it in like the grand final between Virtus Pro and OWCS. Both teams, like they were both avoiding actually banning Mauga, and all they did is ban out other things. They would ban out supports, they'd ban out DPS. They'd go after other parts of the composition because they were confident with their Mauga play.
It was classic EU Overwatch, right? They're just gonna run at each other, just beat the hell out of each other and see what happens. Yeah, where I was actually pleasantly surprised. Like, I actually thought the Ultimates would get by Alcatia. I thought that Twisted Minds, when we did the bracket, I thought they would actually make a run, but they ended up falling to the Ultimates 3-0. I think that was probably one of the, I mean, those two matches in the lower bracket actually quite surprising in terms of like a 3-0 over Twisted Minds. I thought that one would be like closer. And then, if you would have told me it was Ultimates versus Alcatia, I would have probably told you, like, I think Ultimates probably win that. And Alcatia just 3-0 them, although a close 3-0. I think probably the surprise, I guess, for the weekend would be Alcatia in an odd way, in that, like, it's weird to say the team in the upper bracket final would be the surprise team, but the fact that they end up 3-0ing the Ultimates and then also taking VP pretty far, like a 3-1 against VP, like it looks like just like a normal loss, but they've been so good in EMEA that like a 3-1 and then a 4-2 is like pretty respectable for Alcatia. And I think they actually had a really good stage. I mean, Labda playing Sojourn was like really good against like some other awesome hit scan in the region. So for me, that's kind of the standout of the weekend. I think we knew Virtus Pro was just going to win. I mean, we all just penciled that in. But who was in second? Alcatia, I think, a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, we were Labda doubters to start of the year, but Labda won us over in the end on the Soj, especially last weekend. It was just amazing. Rak, I know in NA it's more dive oriented, but what did you kind of see when these Mauga matchups took place? What do you think were like the deciding factors between who ended up being the best Mauga teams?
I don't know if it's a deciding factor, but I did actually find it interesting. Like, literally just the Mauga's perks. Like, everyone used to run the 2 hearts and that other E. Like, Vestola used that, but then I remember like Ziad used the other 2. It's just like, and as Ocie said, like, the teams weren't banning Mauga. It's like, if you lose confidence in your strongest pick and you're like, oh, we got to ban Mauga, we're not good at it. It's like, these teams should be so confident the Mauga that like they will win in playing Mauga. It's like if you ban Sojourn, it's just like kind of saying, our Sojourn's worse, hopefully something else works. Like it's just like when you're at this level, you're so confident that unless you're clearly like an off tank player playing against a main tank, like banning Winston, but like Maga was one of these Overwatch 2 characters that everyone should pick up. So if you ban it, you're just not confident in it, and it's just shows weakness basically.
The other two perks from Maga like synergize with each other way better. Like the two
Yeah.
hearts, like it's what the 20, it's like 20 HP on objectives,
Yeah.
but then the other ones, it's the overrun reloads up to 150 ammo, and then it's
Fire
overrun
pin.
also ignites targets, right? So it's like
Europe is super pinny. Like if you watch
Yeah.
all those fights, everyone just pins every single fight. It's like half the fight started with both Magas pinning with Juno rays, and then everything happened, and the Junos are flying in the sky. That's about it.
Yeah, actually, what's interesting is Custa. They play similarly to Team Falcons. Actually, on the Malga, I noticed that they almost always, they always go for that pin first. They go for the Malga stomp first, and they try and play first like every fight, no matter what. Virtue's Pro, they got caught off guard in the beginning. I feel like some of the maps they dropped, they started dropping maps because they had trouble dealing with that very aggressive playstyle. But like over time, they got a little better at playing second. But just like Hanbin said in an interview after Stockholm, playing first in Malga comp can just get you a free kill. Like if you stomp someone, they're just dead, like the Brig or something. Like what are you gonna do, right? Playing second, it can work where you kind of like bait them and you take angles a little bit, whatever angle you can really take in Malga comp. But it only works so well when you just instantly lose a player. So that's kind of the idea behind stomping first, and that actually puts a lot of pressure on the Malga player. It really does. But it was interesting to see that dynamic.
Yeah, was there anything else you guys were looking at when this match took place? Like Rakattack, like obviously you can look at the Mauga, and that's like a great indication of like what a team is trying to do. You know, be aggressive first, take some space, make space for your damage players. When it comes to the other heroes in the meta, like, you know, you're a support player as well. Like, is there anything else you kind of look for there that you think were maybe a decisive factor? For example, like we saw Brig, Haku took a lot of initiation with the rally, you know, getting into the backline, getting a stun onto the backline to kind of like almost set up an overrun or something like that, right? Is that something you're looking for? Like, how this meta is played, what do you think are the main things to look out for?
Well, I mean, you know, I watched the Brig in Brig Juno because that's what I did, and like in Stockholm and stuff, like that's all I prepped. So it's like it was really cool. I mean, you probably won't be able to find it, but there's like specific little plays. I remember Fixa, like with rallies, it's like you can play normal, and it's like the most important thing to do in Brig is not get pinned and not die instantly, which is honestly kind of hard sometimes. But like if you have rally and you take a specific like flank, I think it was Esperanza, like right on like that corner fight, like he goes through the inside and flanks with rally and just like bashes them, and you like bash, and then your Maga pins, and it's just an insta kill and you win the fight instantly. And like winning a fight with rally is super hard, so you got to do like something crazy like that to get like a really good advantage on the fight.
There's someone you think stood out and did that better than anyone else in the region?
I remember specifically Fixa doing it, and I remember Haku also like doing it, and then but it's like so minimal times that it happens that like being able to pull it off in a match is like it's really good because it will win you a fight and like pull the ult economy like crazy.
Malga's Stomp is such a silly ability. The fact that like it can't be like interrupted or stopped or anything, like he's just like immovable during it as well. It's like,
yeah.
Should they get rid of that? I'm a Reinhardt fan, I'm biased, but should they get rid of that? The unstoppable?
I mean, then he has the same, you know, sad death as Reinhardt. I mean, which might be fine for Malga, to be honest, but
maybe they give him like a 80% boop knockback or like reduction. Make him only get booped like 20% just so you can run away for a millisecond.
What if they just made that part of the ability a perk, so you had to actually spend to get it?
Maybe. I think also what they could do is they could keep the like resistance to CC, like stuns, because I'm thinking like if you remove it all, then like Ana is just going to be able to like you know, sleep every time you try and run in, and it's just going to be super hard to do anything. So like what if you make it so that Malga can be knocked back, you know, you can be hit by like a whip shot or a Lucio boop or something, but you can't like you're still kind of immune to that CC where you can survive that. That might make more sense. Like that way you can still do like the Malga run through an opposing Malga's cage. You can like Malga run through Blizzard. So you can do like interesting things like that, but you still like can get kind of booped around and bullied a little bit while you're running in.
I also imagine he's a really difficult character to balance because like there's heroes like Maga who are really good in like, you know, this level of comp, but I imagine Maga's win rate just in the general population is like in the dumps because people just run it in and run it down and don't really kind of understand or play around it. So like it's one of those heroes that like it's almost like hard for them to nerf because like for the general population, like he actually would probably need a buff if anything. But like yeah, for us, I mean, please don't buff him. I mean, that would be ridiculous.
Yeah, how do you feel about Mauga in general? Obviously, Mauga wasn't played in NA, but do you think Mauga needs some changes? Is there anything about Mauga's kit that you're like, this is just...
What's hilarious is
impressive?
like I actually don't think the perks like were even awesome necessarily for Mauga. Like it kind of came a little bit out of nowhere. Like in NA, we were playing tons of ball, and then perks came out, and the next week it was just like Mauga 24/7. It was just kind of completely out of like left field. It was something that we hadn't played in like, I mean, probably since like Stockholm. Like there was, you know, that's really the last time we saw it. So like it's a little bizarre, but then I also think in NA, right? It's completely different than EMEA. Like NA is not Mauga pilled. Like we were for a week, but then after that we still saw Smaga, but we saw a lot of different looks on other things, right? We saw like Hazard play, we saw Winston, we saw some ball, like Ramatra, right? So like, I'm not exactly sure. Like, I'm sure we'll get another passive balance probably before Champions Clash, right? Because that's like a season 16
So
probably
far away.
balance. So yeah,
Yeah.
and like who knows what that'll bring? Like I think they've said that they want to do even like perk changes going into that, so maybe that'll shake things up. But I don't know how it'll really come down to like, you know, what kind of the Korean teams end up playing really. And if they still really believe that Mog is that strong, then I think you'll see EMEA have no problem playing it, and then I think you'll see NA either try and ban it out or play like around it. China is a complete wild card. They're gonna do whatever the fuck. I mean, they always kind of come.
They might
with some
just be
crazy.
dive. They might just...
Yeah, they always come with some crazy.
So
comp. Yeah, I
China.
mean, yeah, Shy will play like Cassidy.
Neutral
Like, they'll
dive.
just like yeah, they'll play Cassidy Winston and they'll just like run around. But yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see how the next like month or so develops. Because the Malga came a little bit out of nowhere. I could totally expect it for EMEA because no, like how Ocie mentioned, like these are the compositions that like they kind of like to play in EMEA, and this is like a really easy fallback for them. Like when you know new things get entered, let's just go back to you know rush style compositions, and who's the best right now, Maga. So let's just do it. But I don't know if that'll hold for the rest of the world.
I found it interesting. It reminds me, I like literally just thought about that, but it reminds me of old contenders in like 2021, 2020, when on Odyssey, like we'd learn, like we'd be like, oh, we could learn brawl, we could learn dive, and then it'd be like, actually, last second, let's play double shield. And like every single time would be like, because Maga comp, like no one like scrims it for a while, and it's like randomly in playoffs, it's just like, okay, Maga time. And like everyone just hops on Maga. It's just like how it felt like to play double shield back in the day. It was like it was always there for you, but like you'd practice other comps. And
It's like the easiest thing to kind of throw together a little bit late.
Yeah.
Is like, okay, we played. I mean, how many years of Overwatch have we seen like rush style compositions? I mean, not exactly with Maga, right? But like this type of style, and to just kind of replicate it with new heroes, especially because like the perks, there were so many changes and everything. It was probably a little bit of like, okay, what's the path of like least resistance and like chaos? Like, okay, well, let's just play rush. Like these perks are good enough, and we'll just like run it down, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the modern day 6-man.
Yeah,
that
pretty
old
much.
Winston Diva Moira Lucio comp. That one, I think that was a little less powerful, but still, we did have that one. I think there was a tournament where that was hard meta for like a second, like it was like the Echo Reaper version or
The
something.
zombie comp. It was
yeah.
Dallas Fuel final in was that 2024 in Anaheim. They ended up winning. It was like yeah, they ran like the Winston, Echo, Moira stuff.
Right. Yeah. No, that Moira Lucio and all that, that's basically what I feel like the Malga comp is now, but it's just it's even more powerful than that composition was back in the day. And the Malga also, I feel like it's an easy fallback for teams, and it's kind of it's not exactly that they're picking Malga to have the best chance of winning the whole thing. It's more so to reduce the chance of losing. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like the Malga right now actually has a lower skill ceiling than other compositions. I feel like you have way more potential if you're switching around, playing different compositions on different maps. But the Malga is an easy thing that you can pick to be like, okay, this is the comp that we have the least chance of getting last place, right? We'll probably end up in the middle to high, and maybe we'll get the grand final, right? And that's the mindset that a lot of teams are in, and that's why we can see like these really fast switches over to like Malga comp, even though no balance changes are made, because all of a sudden one team starts playing it in scrims. Oh, we can't beat the Malga comp in scrims. What are we gonna do? Okay, we're just gonna play Malga, and it just turns into that kind of. And that's I think also what happened with Stockholm, where I would go as far as to say I don't think that Malga comp was the best possible comp you could play in Stockholm either. I think there were other things that could be played. I think there were other ways to beat it. It was just kind of from every team, they didn't exactly know how to beat it, and it became a kind of a game of, okay, well, if we can't beat it immediately, we're just going to join and like do the best we can with it.
I think a part of it's also the map pool. Like,
Yeah.
you know, because Flashpoint is comboed with hybrid, you don't like you necessarily can just kind of throw the hybrid maps out and just play Suravasa 24/7, which is like kind of what we saw a lot from most of the regions. And you know that like you can play, you don't need to play dive here, right? You don't necessarily need to play it on Lijiang or any of the control maps, right? Like Samoa, you don't necessarily need to have it there. Push, everybody basically picks Esperanza, so you don't necessarily need to play dive there either. And then Escort, we had no like Gibraltar in the pool, right? So the only real dive map that we had for Escort was Dorado. So like you kind of look at the map pool, like you didn't really need to have to kind of play anything else. There was not a lot of other things in there. I also think this is one of the downsides of having Flashpoint and Hybrid on the same like path. I think Flashpoint should probably be on the same path with like Push, but at least for this first tournament, we had it on the same one as Hybrid.
Yeah, they had this original setup because they, as far as I know, they wanted every map type in. Because like I actually kind of gave a suggestion in terms of what I felt like the best way to manage like the map pool would be, and I like agreed that I'm personally a believer in a smaller map pool. But and so like my idea was, hey, let's just like remove some of the modes for each stage, right? And that would be something that would be a little easier to manage. And then like Flashpoint and Push could be in like the same thing. And yeah, so like that was kind of my original idea. But I think because they needed like all of them, they ended up combining kind of randomly Clash. I forget what Clash was with, but like they did Clash and then they did Flashpoint. And I feel like that's how we ended up with this weird map pool, is just the fact that they removed Clash kind of at the last second before this stage of OWCS started, and they just didn't change it. I think they might change it for next stage, actually. I think that's what we might see.
Yeah, because like Game 5 isn't a set control either, right? So like Game 5 was like basically they like reset kind of the thing. So like you never necessarily even saw 5 game modes. Like you just kind of saw control twice, Flashpoint, and then Escort.
I think we saw Eichenwald once, and I think that's the only hybrid I ever watched this entire weekend, or like the past 2 weekends.
NA, we played Blizzard World once, but I don't think in the playoffs. I think it was like regular season.
Yeah,
like,
I think the regular season. I know Vision and EMEA. Like
otherwise, like
they preferred like Blizzard World for Zen comp.
Yeah, you picked it once too, I think. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure. So like for NA, I'm just looking through it now because like I usually make a joke about it on the broadcast. Yeah, everything outside of like 3 games for the whole playoffs, Suravasa wasn't the second map pick, but Suravasa like was basically in every series. So like,
when I saw Icon in the EMEA finals, I was like, "What is happening?" Like, And Jack was like, yeah, we haven't seen this map since week 2. And I was like, what? We haven't seen it in over a month. And they picked
Wait,
Dykemon.
is this right? NA, we didn't see a hybrid map all playoff.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's
Oh
just
my
like
God.
it's the same thing as like New Queen Street, right? Like when I was playing the New Queen Street, it was like New Queen Street, Colo, Esperanca, and like it wasn't even like ever actually done, but it was like a gentleman's agreement that nobody wanted to play New Queen Street, so we just never picked New Queen Street. It's just like the same thing, but like if you pick Saravasi, you just don't even need a practice hybrid anymore.
Well, that was also like an NA, right? We also saw basically everything outside of, I think it was the finals. Yeah, the finals they took Coliseo, but everything else was Esperanza. So like
Yeah.
2 of the 5 maps in every series, you absolutely knew what they were going to be. And then at that point, it kind of like diminishes even map selection, right? Because what you're gonna, both teams want to play Saravasa, both teams want to play Esperanza. So like, do you just pick? And then the escort's not even like any great selections, right? If you're not good at dive, so you're not going to play Dorado, it's Route 66 or Havana. Like, just kind of like bad.
Yeah, maybe we can petition to see a change being made there. That'd be quite interesting. It's great feedback, honestly, and something I hadn't really thought about previous to the episode. So love that. Getting back on track with EMEA OWCS here. Obviously, Twisted Minds and the Ultimates kind of missing out here. Is there anything you feel like you could kind of chalk that up to? Obviously, I think all 4 teams kind of like got together kind of like last second and obviously trying to figure out this Mauga meta. The Ultimates especially, right? Like they didn't really find something they excelled on until this Mauga meta became a thing a couple of weeks ago, and then they looked really good on it. But is there anything else you kind of think that Alcadzia did better, perhaps, than the Ultimates and Twisted Minds here?
I feel like Alcadzia can actually swap. I feel like they actually have like, they do lack hero pool in some senses, but their hero pool is much, much better than Ultimates or Twisted Minds. I'd say that's the weakness of both of those teams. Twisted Minds, the Ultimates, they both lack a solid hero pool. Alcadzia a little more flexible. I also think they're a little better drilled, just the macros better, especially watching like the Malgamir and everything. But like even disregarding that, I just think, you have Funny Astro and Twisted Minds who, I'm going to be honest, he's pretty inflexible for like a support player. And then TVNT and Hottie, like if you put either of them in, it's pretty easy to ban them out. And that's also kind of an issue. For the Ultimates, you have Kai, who's like, I don't want to say he's a Sojourn one trick, but he's kind of a Sojourn one trick. And that's a bit of a problem for the Ultimates. And he's kind of just a very traditional hit scam player. So for them, like playing any sort of double flex DPS comp is really hard. And then, you have KSA and Chase. Again, like a lot of these, but both of these teams, they're easy to ban. They're easy to ban. So when you're up against Twisted Minds Ultimates, both of those teams, they like to protect ban. Like I think we've actually seen more protect bans with those teams than any other team. And that's why you'll see like at the beginning, like, I don't know, usually they play to protect tank actually. I think for Twisted Minds specifically, they usually protect ban for TVNT. But it just depends. But yeah, that's how both of those teams play. And I think the fact that they always have to use their bans defensively, I don't know if that makes any sense. Like it's always putting them at a disadvantage. They can't fully take advantage of bans.
I'm also somewhat like, I think for both of these teams, I mean, this is kind of sound. I'm almost like you kind of like have to trust the talent on both rosters and almost give them a little bit of a pass here for stage 1, because like it was a little bit all over the place, right? Like we had hazard comps to kick things off, then we kind of like went to dive for a little bit post that, and then all of a sudden we had like perks introduced, and then now Maga's in the game, like, you know what I mean? Like like it was thrown around, like especially if you're a team who's trying to practice and find your groove, this probably wasn't the best environment to do so, because it felt like every other week the game was being flipped on its head. So like I'm almost willing to give a little bit of a pass, because I think now that obviously perks are in the game and things like that, it'll be like a little bit more stable, kind of like how it was, but this was like a pretty big shift. And I think you kind of have to trust, at least on both these rosters, that like you have talent that has qualified for these events before and can be successful. But I saying that, I don't think Alcatia is like getting worse or going away, right? I think probably Alcatia just continues to get better, if anything.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think they've been really sick. Rack, one backline that we saw quite a bit of actually was this Juno Lucio being played by Alcatia, and we actually saw it as well from Twisted Minds when they played on Sanctum against the Ultimates, and they played with Adventure as well. And it really just it went horribly for Twisted Minds against the Ultimates. Like they didn't have time to set up what they were trying to do at all. But then Alcatia, I thought they play this backline especially like really smart. Like the Kiriko was banned here, which is something Landon usually plays, so he goes over to the Juno instead. What was this kind of like a nice alternate backline, you thought, playing the Juno Lucio instead? Was there anything here that kind of like stood out to you playing the Diva here from Alcatia?
I think it's good, especially with the Diva, because you can just like speed more. But like, it's like high risk, high reward. I remember back before Stockholm. So I mean, like as you guys know, probably like NRG, we played Queen. So like we were different in that respect, regardless. And I remember trying to like convince us to give Juno Lucio a test over Juno Brig, because I was like, we got Queen, that's 1 speed. We got Juno, that's 2 speeds. And you know what's better? 3. So why can't I play Lucio? We can catch up to them. But like I got flamed. We didn't even like get to try it. But
actually,
it's just,
sorry to interrupt you
high
there,
risk,
but
high reward.
I actually think I spoke to Dante around then because we did like a work thing together. And he was like, I asked him like, hey, what's the collegiate meta? And he was like, yeah, it's like Lucio, Juno, Queen or something. This was like in October, September or something. Was that the case?
Yeah, we were playing in collegiate, and I was like, guys, we got to run 3 speeds. And like, I was still getting like, they were all still yelling at me. I'm like, I'm not swapping off Lucio. But yeah, so it's just like high risk, high reward, because with Brig, you just can't die. Like you have a shield, you have armor, stuff like that, and you have 250 health. But on Lucio, you have 225 health, and you can get 1 shot. So if your team's not actually like playing as a team, and like your Lucio is not playing safe enough to not get 1 tapped, it's like if you get picked, it just destroys the comp. But beat is so good, speed's good, especially with a Diva. Like you can just fly in. Because in that specific map is like, Twilight's on Ana. Twilight's probably gonna stay on Ana the whole game, I'm not gonna lie. So like you could just fly on them, and then you have more speeds to get in, out, all around. Amp heals. The new amp range is crazy too. So like everyone gets affected by that.
Yeah, it's like 2016. It's absurd. Yeah, so really, really impressed by Alcatia. They play that, cute little Mason brawl kind of composition too, where they TP around and just 5-stack and get on top of people. Didn't work against VP, but they work against the Ultimates on Havana. So it was actually a nice little comp there. Also a little bit of innovation, I suppose. So I really enjoyed watching that. But I think we should take some time before we move over to NA to just talk about VP as well. They went 10-0 this stage. Super dominant. What? Why are you giggling?
No, it's just funny because like we've talked about so many teams, I feel like throughout the entire thing in the EMEA, we like rarely talk about VP because it's just so boring because they're just beating the hell out of everybody.
They are. They're just dominant. But I think it's really impressive how they've been able to excel at so many different compositions throughout the stage, but then also pick up this market composition. They just feel like Ocie, I think you said before, like a team was like well drilled. I feel like VP, they are like a really smart team, like the way they adapt, depending on what their opponent does. And I think that was quite noticeable in the finals, and actually something I think Vestola commented on in the post-match interview. It's just like, yeah, we weren't quite ready for Alcatia's aggression, how fast they played. But then I think you could see from Ike and Valdeon that they actually kind of did anticipate it, and they dealt with Ciar in a way. They put pressure on him, didn't allow him to get into the backline. What did you kind of see from Virtus Pro this weekend? What kind of impressed you the most?
I mean, I feel like really the coaching kind of showed. I don't know if that makes any sense with Smash on Virtus Pro, and then also Jumbuck on Alcatia. Both of those teams pretty well drilled in the Malga composition in particular. I think Virtus Pro, the most surprising thing for me was the performance from Vestola. I didn't expect Vestola to be built like that. And honestly, I feel like last season, I wasn't much of a Vestola believer because I felt like he lacked flexibility. I felt like that was a major issue. But Vestola kind of having the hazard available, being able to play the RAM in a lot of cases, like for these metas, at least so far, he's been pretty strong. He's been there. And then Jwoo is kind of a rookie in EMEA. he's going insane. He's incredible, right? That's like that's an obvious standout, but he played exceptionally well. But the whole team is really impressive.
Yeah, Matt Rack.
This team is going to be really good, I think, at the Champions Clash. Like, I can't see them performing poorly in like any kind of meta. There was a bracket on Liquipedia, I think, for Champions Clash, but it's most certainly wrong. At least I hope it's very wrong, because it doesn't really make much sense. But
Yeah, you have
you
EMEA
know,
on one side and NA on the other, right?
yeah. They have basically like they have there's you could break up the regions. Yeah, you don't have to put all of EMEA on one side and all in NA on the other. You got you can do this a different way. But they're going to get like a China second or like NA second. Really just hope anything but the Korea second and you're kind of good. Like I think this team could probably go pretty far here at Champions Clash. I think they're going to do quite well.
Yeah, I think they got China first, so they're gonna play against once again. It's a little unlucky, to be honest. I feel like I believe that bracket might actually be correct in the sense that the winner for each one, it's so funny for Nightmare winning, they get to play against China second, which will be the worst team in the tournament. Like, no offense to the China region, but like they just haven't developed at all. There's not really a second team in China that can like compete at an international level. So Nightmare's going to crush whoever that is, but Virtus Pro, they're going to get a bit of a match. I still think, like, once again, I don't think they have the advantage in that matchup. In my opinion, I still think it's better. But, Alcatia, they lost. They're up against Asia first, so probably like Crazy Ricken. So that's much worse. That's much worse than once again.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal, that bracket.
Yeah.
We'll have to see if the meta, because if the meta is dive and you're playing once again, it's like, all right, they're the dark horse once again. I feel like they were the dark horse in Toronto, that last Overwatch League finals, and even at EWC maybe like last year. So once again, they're always like an opponent you don't really want to play. They're just so annoying to deal with there. So here you go. I mean, surely this is from the rule book, I believe, that was announced before the event. So
okay, so they actually mark that, I guess, basically like essentially the Korean teams, although they're a first and second place, they basically have them as the top 2 seeds, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which
so they're trying to
fair.
like predict the strength of the regions, and it kind of does make sense, I suppose. China, obviously, like, who knows, but
yeah. I mean, okay. So yeah, I mean, I actually, like, when you actually see it there on paper, it kind of makes more sense. When you see like all of NA on one side of the bracket and all in EMEA on the other, it looks like really bizarre. But they should just try and display it like how they just had it laid out, because that makes a lot more sense, I think.
Yeah, I think it's just that the fact that you have China there now. I think China being there kind of like switches it up a little bit, and I do think that that's a pretty good first place reward for the teams that win in NA and EMEA, getting to go up against the Chinese teams, because that's just going to be the easier matchup, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's just luck of the draw, I guess. EMEA having to go up against China first, but I'm not gonna lie. I think they made the right call there, because I guess that was just saying EMEA is a little better than NA, which I might actually kind of agree with. It's hard to tell. It's pretty close, but Virtus Pro you could say they're the strongest team in the West. That wouldn't be a huge exaggeration. So I think Virtus Pro versus China first, that's fair. Nightmare versus China second, that's fair.
Wouldn't it be based off of the Stockholm placements, probably? Like, was that why they put NA like above EU?
Maybe that could be.
Because I remember with like EWC, it was like they gave EU 5 slots because they were better. And I don't know how the seating was at Stockholm, but I do know that Toronto did really well at EWC. So I don't know if that affected like Stockholm's placements, or if it was just Dallas major. Because like EU like destroyed NA, but then at Stockholm was the opposite.
I think with Stockholm, they probably just used the same formula as the first event, because it was like, I don't think they accounted for EWC at all. I also think, I mean, this is actually, looking at it now, like, this is actually pretty good for Nightmare and even SSG, in the fact that, like, I'm just trying to rack my brain, but like, typically when we have China at an event, it's typically just one team. and it's
Yeah.
basically the same team we always see with, you know, Gushui, Shy, Leave. Like, it's the same kind of crew. Who would even be the second best team in China? I
We
mean,
talked about this. I think Rock Esports.
Yeah, I have
picked
the
up a squad.
Rock. Yeah,
yeah.
it's like Belos Ria, Dia, Choi Se Juan, Molly, Lengsa.
Yeah, that'll probably be it then.
Yeah, I mean, but if I'm Nightmare, like, and you told
I'd
me I
wanna
had
play
to
that
sign
team.
up for one
Yeah.
of those matchups,
Yeah,
for
sign me
sure.
up for that one. Yeah.
Yeah, so Nightmare actually will get rewarded for the number one there. I'm sorry, guys. I just feel like we didn't glaze Virtus Pro enough. I know we've been doing it for a few weeks now, but obviously it's hard to talk about them because yes, they were so dominant. They just were the best team. But I do want us to pick an MVP for the stage. I know we kind of did this on broadcast too. But I'm just curious who in your guys' mind stood out. And who you would say was like the biggest contributor to Virtus Pro and their dominance this stage. Is there any player you'd pick in particular?
Personally, I don't know. I mean, well, probably biased because I played with Vestola, but like I think Vestola did like really good. I remember like we flexed with him like a little bit with when I was on Ents, and he was doing good. I remember taking like we were playing Monkey on Dorado like against Toronto in a scrim, and like we won. And I was like, oh my god, Vestola's got the Winston if he ever needs it. And and I remember talking to him at Stockholm, and it seemed like he wasn't like sure what he was gonna do next year. So I'm glad he like stuck with it, and he's doing so good. And then I remember Gala talking to him in like January, and he's like, I was like, oh, you're gonna do good next year? He's like, I'm gonna win my region and I'm gonna win the LAN. I'm like, oh, okay. And he's standing on business so far.
I would
I
have said
feel like-
Vestola or Jwoo.
Yeah. I think both of those are fair. Like kind of like almost to go off the rails with like, you know, obviously Jwoo and Vestola, I feel like they're easy to see, but I feel like the flexibility of the backline overall, just having FACEIT and Gala there, both of them can play like most backlines. They can play double flex stuff. I think that's like really good. It's super, super, super valuable to have a flexible backline.
Yeah, I nominated Vestola because you kind of hit on it earlier as well that I was kind of worried about Vestola's inflexibility or something like that, but I feel like Smash as well did a great job of like protect banning or target banning to help Vestola in those tank matchups. Like Dorado would be a great example. It's just like, okay, well, if you don't play, if Vestola doesn't get to play Diva on Dorado, then what can you gonna do? But I feel like they game planned around that. They found alternate strategies and worked around that in a really smart way. So I've been really impressed by Vestola throughout the stage. And we kind of like talked about it on broadcast too after they won. It's just like if they get like a Sigma meta or something like that, like Vestola's gonna be so happy and they get Shockwave. Like that'd be amazing for them because Vestola didn't really play his best hero, I feel like.
Well, they lost 3
That
maps
much.
the whole fucking regular season. Gee, I mean, yeah,
Two against Custa and one against
how much better of a
GG.
medic you get? You understand?
well, okay. I mean the LAN is a different thing in its entirety.
Oh
but,
well, yeah. I mean, the land, who knows? But
yeah. But yeah, Virtus Pro dominant. So big congratulations to them for getting the number 1 seed. And let's head over to North America then. Very big results, some big matches this weekend. Some I don't want to say surprising because I think we predict it, Matt? Did we predict
You know
the
what?
Nightmare win over Liquid?
I think
I can't
actually
remember if
think
it
we
did Liquid
decided.
winning
I
it
think
over
we
it.
copped out on it. I think
Yeah,
we were
might
like,
have popped out on it.
we were talking about it, and I think we just kind of abandoned ship last minute.
Yeah, maybe
which-
we did. God damn it, we were so close.
Well,
We were
I
so
think
close to being
the
right.
logic was that if Team Liquid beat them that first week, it was going to be difficult for Nightmare to beat them the second. Like, because you're basically asking them to beat Team Liquid in a 2 out of 3 in 3 weeks, pretty much. And we were like, we don't really love the odds there, but clearly,
Yeah, do you wanna quickly briefly touch on I guess the timeless Nightmare match? Because that felt like, you know, maybe the most fun side of
Timeless-
the match.
Timeless started the stage off really hot, right? They beat Team Liquid 3-0 first thing, kicked it off, and then it felt like it was just kind of all trending downwards from there. I mean, and you kind of go out. I mean, look, you beat Avidity and Red, Nightmare beats Red Esports, but we kind of knew those were going to happen, right? So, like, you kind of just almost toss those results out where, the 2 teams that you needed to beat, right? You go 1-6 in terms of map count. So like, Timeless probably at the beginning of the stage thought they were going to be really competitive, close, and proved to not really be in the same ballpark kind of with some of these teams at the top.
Yeah, I think it was tough as well. It started out really hot. Chopper had an amazing start to the stage. But then here, Nightmare just kind of took over and looked really impressive. I think we'll talk a lot about Nightmare, especially after their finals. They beat Space Station, of course, but I think we should talk about Team Liquid next. The fact they went to 5 maps against Space Station in upper bracket final, barely lose out on Nepal against Nightmare in the lower bracket final. I guess kind of not to be too dramatic, not to make a YouTube title out of it, but like what went wrong for Team Liquid, do you think, this weekend?
The Havana was a generational
Yeah,
fumble.
I was gonna say like Havana was definitely the most upsetting map. I think that was probably the turning point of just everything.
The fact that they lost that was crazy, because like when we were casting it, I was like, well, you essentially just need like a fuller hold, and like we've seen fuller holds, but like everything kind of has to go wrong for it to happen. And there was one fight where they had Blade, Cage, and I think Beat, or Blade, Cage, and Ray, and Lethal just basically just shoots Knife as he's coming out of a doorway with an overclock. So, and then they decide to use everything even on top of it, and like, oh, it's just a shit show. I mean, you could tell a little bit like that they were kind of panicking and like just kind of throwing stuff out there. And I mean, for Nightmare to steal this, I mean, that's absurd.
What do you think went wrong here, Rak?
I think it was probably just like nerves. I mean, there's like a lot of like random swaps and stuff, and they never took like a full mirror. Like maybe if they took a full mirror, it would have like worked. But I remember like, well, on defense, Admiral played Brig, and then like they were playing like Kiri into the Brig, and then I think they were playing like Juno Kiri into the. They just like they never like full mirrored. Maybe if they mirrored, it would have been different. But like, and then yeah, nerves probably got to them. They like just messed up ults here and there, random magic picks, just kind of sets you on a back foot. And when you only have 4 minutes, you're like on a full hold, you're like, oh, we got this. We got a few fights. And then 2 minutes comes and you're like, we haven't won a fight yet. This is getting a little nervous. Yeah. And then you get more nervous and more nervous. And also, you're the big dogs on the field. Nightmare have like no pressure on them, basically. Like the underdog by a lot.
You also get like fuller held. You're playing like Maga, and they're trying to play like a hazard comp into it. And you end up like losing it as well. Like just I feel like everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong. I will say, I think in the matches that Liquid lost, obviously here to Nightmare and then SSG, I thought Tree played good. I think though that like there was a pretty there's definitely a gap, I think, between like Knife and Zera and Sugar Free though. I think especially you saw it in the SSG series, like on Tracer, like it was not, where Sugar Free was just dominant. But then also you see like Zera in this series, and then even Zera in the finals, like really even kind of step up and take it to Sugar Free there and the opposing team. But I think that's something to keep an eye on for Team Liquid, right? Like the kind of flex DPS role, like especially if you're going to use like an import slot on it, you kind of need to really be popping off there.
Ocie, what did you see from Team Liquid this past weekend? Anything that stood out to you?
I mean, I'm not sure anything in particular. I think what really, the final map, this is the one thing I can think of that I remember. Obviously Havana was heartbreaking, but I think when they rolled out on Orisa, on Nepal, I think that was it. I think that was the moment where it was over, because, it's also one of the best places they could play their ball composition. They're up against the Ramatra, and this moment here, yeah, it was just... I feel like they rolled out on the wrong thing. I feel like they rolled out on the wrong composition. It didn't work out at all. I think they basically got 100-0'd. I think they capped once, and then after that, they got immediately just rolled over again. And after that, there was nothing they could do. But
the second round wasn't close here on Nepal either. Yeah, and I mean, what, you had like an Ana and Maga ban, right? So you could have played like the ball potentially. It sometimes
one of the best
seems like Liquid, like they think even like a little bit too deep about it. Like like they should. Like just go to so many of these other teams, right? They just kind of like with the bans after a while, they just kind of end up going to what they know. They like Liquid was so good on those ball comps, and like that's where they were really seeing the most success throughout the stage against like top teams. And then they kind of just went completely away from it. And like the few times we've seen them play, now I talked about it when we were casting, we've seen them play Orisa Sigma here on Nepal, and like they kind of just lose. Like they lose to whether it be Ramacha or Winston come. So like to see them kind of go to it was a little bit odd. Yeah.
Yeah, it was unfortunate.
Rack, do you think the Orisa was a mistake?
Not gonna lie, I thought they were gonna play like Ball Lucio Kiri when they rolled over the map. I know Infect is like really confident as Orisa, but I feel like there's just not been much Orisa. That like whether like I don't even know, you know, because I didn't watch the POVs. Low-key, I was just kind of trying to hype up the game. But like I don't know if he played like perfectly on a micro level, but regardless of even if he played like perfect at a micro level, like his team would have had to been used to the Orisa comp to make it work. So just like overall, like throwing like a last minute Hail Mary type of thing, it's just like it just can confuse anyone.
Yeah.
And if anyone's confused, it's over.
This also makes the Havana loss worse because if Nightmare ends up losing Havana, like everybody kind of thought they probably were, they would have actually probably had to ban the Maga on Esperanza, and you would have had Maga potentially here for the final map if you wanted to kind of play it. So like them winning Havana not only gives them the Maga ban for game 5, but I mean also just kind of keeps them alive in the series.
Yeah, I think it's hard. It puts a lot of pressure on the Orisa to like get like some insane javelins towards the weaker players in this comp, because like their modder like really doesn't care, so you're not really doing anything in a tank duel, and so you need like some insane javelins on like lethal or something to like set up frags. Like it doesn't do a lot for you, so it puts more pressure on the rest of the team to kind of like pop off, like Tree for example. Like you need Tree to just have like a great game there, right? So yeah, it's tough not having that Mauga ban. It was, you know, credit to Nightmare for saving that Mauga ban. It was something that Matt Gravy hit on the desk as well, that just like the fact they were able to save this Mauga ban from F5, like really smart, well played by them as well. So yeah.
I mean, is this like, are you guys worried about this team moving forward, or like what's your kind of thoughts there?
I think they'll be
I'm
fine.
worried.
Like they're a flexible roster, you know. I feel like whatever meta they get, they'll be fine. That's the one thing I know for sure. And that means that like they can't end up with a bad meta and just end up being useless, which some teams legitimately that's how it is, right? Like I'm kind of looking at some of EMEA here. Cough cough ultimates maybe. But like yeah, it's very easy for some teams to kind of just be nerfed significantly with a meta. Team Liquid, they have the advantage of flexibility. I do think that their peaks on their individual heroes might be a bit lower, but I think they can pull through, right? They're either going to be second or third a lot of the time. And that's what I expect. They can achieve first for sure. Like they can be anywhere between first and third, but they're always going to be contending for that.
Yeah, the only thing that like worries me slightly is that against the other top 4 teams, so against Timeless, SSG, and Nightmare, they go 2-4 throughout, including the regular season of the playoffs. So to like lose, like, I mean, they lose close games, right? Like the SSG and the Nightmare ones at the end are both, you know, game 5s, and then they beat Nightmare 3-1 at the beginning of the playoffs, but they got 3-0'd by Timeless and got 3-0'd by Nightmare during the regular stage, and then also they barely beat SSG 3-2 during the regular stage. So it's like against, like, maybe it's just at the gap, like you kind of like think about this team almost like the Toronto kind of hangover from last year and like how good they were, that you kind of put them in the same category, but like maybe it's just not the same. Like this team is just way more beatable than that team. But I guess that would worry me a little bit because realistically in NA, like those are the teams you have to be good against. And like, you know, if you're going to beat Avidity and Rad Esports, like great, but like you need to be able to beat these teams. And like, you'd hope, I guess, with the backing of like Liquid and the ability for the roster, like you could beat these teams like handily, right? But the fact that, you know, you kind of have a losing record against them throughout the stage definitely worries me a bit, because we also saw multiple metas throughout the stage, right? So it wasn't like just kind of we were bad at this one thing and end up kind of losing them. Like you lost them at different points throughout the year, so that's worrying a little bit.
All right, Rack, don't take this the wrong way, but I want to hit on your experience. You know, your player experience here in the past a little bit. So I'm thinking back to last year. Energy missed out on EWC. I'm sorry to bring that up.
Yeah. No, you're good.
And
played
I
either way.
remember being in that Twitch stream, and you guys were just watching the replay codes, and Cal was in there, and PG, and it was like everyone was like really down, because
Yeah.
it essentially also meant that there was like a really long time until the next stage, like stage 3 of OWCS coming. So it was like the whole summer essentially with no competition. And I guess Liquid are kind of in a similar spot now, where because the major is essentially like what 5-6 weeks away.
Yeah.
I guess more like maybe 4 or something like that. Stage 2 is like starting in like they have a lot of time until then. So how did you kind of approach a long break like that? And what do you think like what would you think would be a good way to spend all that time before stage 2 kicks off to like improve your game or improve as a team?
So my situation was a little bit different. I was
I
like,
guess
you know
so,
what?
yeah.
I was like,
you
you
were
know
on
what?
ends, right?
Yeah. So I was
Yeah.
like, it was like 1 week deep, and I was like, I'm just gonna like stream. I'm just gonna chill. I'm gonna play ranked. Make sure like I'm gonna try to like diverse my hero pool. And then I got asked, they're like, oh, can you rank for us? And they're like, actually, can you play for us? So like my thing got cut pretty short, but it was just kind of play the game, play ranked, diverse my hero pool, especially because 5-man rosters. It's like very important to increase your hero pool as much as you can all the time. But going to the off season, I think I was talking to Nightmare about it, because I live with some of the Nightmare, some of the Liquid guys, and it's because NA in like once they start back up, they're only going to be scrimming like SSG. Like SSG is going to be the only team scrimming. So like it kind of like sucks for them. But in EU, I think it's going to be a different story, because like they have all those like Saudi E-leagues going on at all times, and there's like a ton of other tournaments. So like they're going to have enough practice of like diverse practice between teams. But NA, it just kind of depends if Liquid wants to scrim. I assume they will want to scrim. Maybe it might just not be as intense. But just like I don't know, just keep playing ranked, keep grinding when you can, like VOD where you can, watch like the finals and stuff like that.
Yeah, I feel like we're in a good spot, right? Because there's so many resources these days. So like if you wanted to improve your game, like Obsoger and POVs, if you're if there's a hero you're struggling with, you can easily just go look up a pro VOD, like how is this player playing? I don't know, like Kiriko, and you can like get a sense of what's going on. Ocie, obviously. Check out Ocie's video. Funny Astro brought out the Mercy. I don't know if you saw that.
I
maybe
did.
one of your videos out there encouraging some Mercy gameplay in Pro Overwatch. But yeah, a lot of great resources this day. So
the
I
break
guess we should
sucks though. I mean, to lose the way they did and then now have to sit around till what Champions Clash is in April. So what, stage 2 probably May, right?
Yeah, kind of right.
That's tough.
Yeah. It's a long time. The finals, Nightmare, SSG. Really, really fun series here. Back and forth. Very fun styles. Not like EMEA at all here. Matt, obviously casting another finals for you under your belt. Achievement list keeps piling on your part.
Yeah,
like
milestones earned.
Another milestone earned.
You know what I saw the other day? This is actually fucking crazy.
What?
Me and Mitch casted a third of all Overwatch League games ever played. Think about how many games that is.
That's too many. I wish that wasn't the case. I wish that wasn't the case. No, I'm
Crazy.
just wondering. That is quite a large amount. What was like kind of like what did you kind of like? What was your approach like going into this series, and what were some of the things you saw like early on in this series as Nightmare started to like really be competitive with?
Dude, there's one series to watch, I think, from both regions. It's probably this one, because it was so fun in the sense that like they didn't just kind of play Morgo like head to head against each other. Like we saw like just about everything in this one. I mean, this is why it was awesome. And then I also think you kind of see, younger players. You don't want to say like rising up or ascending, because like we saw a lot of these players last year, and like we know players like UV and Kuffa, like the level that they're at. But I think dude, they played 11 maps yesterday. I mean, that's a lot of fucking games. So for them to be able to kind of withstand that and be able to win this series, I think it's like really the type of series that they can take forward, and like you build confidence moving forward, just as like players in a team off of something like this. And then I don't know the guys on Nightmare. really. We just kind of interacted with UV at events and stuff like that, and Zero as well. But like, you can tell when we interview them, like this shit means a lot to them, and like they really wanted to go to Champions Clash. So I mean, I'm kind of happy for them in that regard that they're able to make it. Lethal had himself a fucking series though. I mean, he just insta-locked the Ashe and was just fucking popping off. I mean, left and right. And the Dynamite perk, it's like the typically against like, more comps that like don't really need to kind of like stack together, the Dynamite doesn't get as much value. The 40% explosion radius though, like the buff of that plus the ammo is like, and it's the ammo on throw, it's not even like ammo on hitting it, right? So it's just hitting the button. Like, it's pretty significant. It's also quite interesting they didn't run it at all throughout the tournament up until now. So they just kind of brought it out here towards the end. But I mean, I was just really impressed with Nightmare overall, playing a really long day, playing all these different types of compositions. I think it's a team that definitely has proved to themselves that they're able to do it, right? I think SSG is going to be fine when they go to the LAN. I think that's totally, they have the players to really play, at the highest level, even internationally. I think Nightmare though gains a ton of confidence from this that they can too.
Yeah, that match was really, really impressive. I think there are two standouts to me. The first is the fact that Zero was able to actually match Sugar Free on Tracer, and it was incredible. The level of play, I feel like for both players actually really leveled up there, where like we would see pulse bombs being traded, pulse bomb, pulse bomb, pulse bomb. The amount that Zero was hitting was incredible. Like I did not expect that out of him, because we normally see Zero as, oh, it's the Genji guy, right? Good at Genji. If Genji's banned out, it's going to be a little less of an advantage, but no, Zero just straight up on that Tracer was able to match Sugar Free. So that was super impressive. I think also Cuffa. Cuffa came out of nowhere. I felt like I don't feel like I've ever seen Cuffa as like a super, super strong player, like best of NA. I think normally we think of like Infected as the best tank player at the moment in North America, but Cuffa just he had an incredible performance. I can't even lie. I was most impressed honestly with the Ramatra, especially against like the Malga comps, because he played it perfectly, like perfectly. He drew so much attention. He would like hard flank, and basically his whole goal was to like make everyone on Space Station look at him. You have to look at me. Malga, turn, look at me. Provides a ton of space for like Zero to get value, for the rest of Nightmare to get value, and that really paid off. Like Route 66 was the map for Cuffa, but even on the Winston, he was able to match Kellen, and that's no that's no easy feat. That is very difficult in that Winston mirror, right? Space Station. Nightmare said it themselves, I think, in the interview before their match against Space Station. They said, hey, they only look good on the dive, and they mirrored the dive and on a bunch of those maps, and they actually won out overall. So that was super, super awesome to see, honestly. I mean, you like in NA, just seeing this whole dive mirror type of deal. Normally, you only see that in Korea or something, but seeing that in NA, it's super, super interesting. And although Cuffa, I will say, it was super funny seeing like at the first fight of every map where he started Winston, he would jump in, instantly die. He's super, super aggressive. He paid for it a lot, but like every map, I remember Coliseo, bam, dead. Esperanza, he jumps in, bam, dead. Like, I don't know what it is with Cuffa in first fights, but there's no agreement there.
The glorious Winston life. There's a lot of glory in that. It's a lot of honor. I respect it. I'm so happy for Cuffa, because I feel like Cuffa has just been grinding like forever now, and this is a great opportunity, and like there's a great achievement in Cuffa's career. So I'm like really stoked for Cuffa. I feel like was a Winston player for so long. I'm thinking back to like the 2022 Pro-Am, I think it was, when we saw quite a bit of matches with Cuffa sparring with those teams as well. So yeah, I kind of agree with Ocie. Like Cuffa, like went from like respectable tank player, like I'd want Cuffa like on a team I'm rooting for, and now just like winning in this tournament against SSG is like it's like a huge achievement for Cuffa. I'm like really happy for him. So I agree with you. It's an awesome kind of like story. All of these players is an awesome story. Lethal, yeah. I feel like the myth around Lethal just continues to grow. Just comes into these games and just absolutely dominates. I'm thinking back to the FACEIT League Masters. I think it was the second finals last year, where it was that story of him at the supermarket, and I was like, all right, I'll walk home and play for you guys. And he just came off the supermarket and just reverse whipped in the FACEIT finals. Like the myth of Lethal continues to grow. So many great stories here. What about you, Rak? What individual on this Nightmare roster do you think really stood out to you?
I think I'm a little biased between like the Winthrop guys. I think Zero has been doing really well, but I do think like UV's probably one of like the most grindy, like work ethic players I've ever played with. Like he's constantly VODing. You check, I mean, don't check his DMs probably, but like, you know, like he'll DM like players all the time, be like, hey, this spot, this map, this, do this, or like, what do you think about that? Like he'll DM people. He was VOD review. He VOD reviews like Overwatch between like in the scrim. Like he'll go back, check all the VODs. I remember like a few months ago, like on NRG, he'd VOD review Overwatch. He'd watch Deadlock VODs because he wanted to get a Deadlock. And then he also VOD review Super Smash Bros. Like he has a notebook with Super Smash Bros. Tech.
Is he just VOD reviewing everything?
He's just like a grinder. He's just all around. We're at the gym, like we were at the gym earlier today.
VOD reviewing gym?
Yeah, probably. But yeah, no, he's just got like super good work ethic, really good. Like I think he's like generally slept on. I know the partner teams did pass on him. Not sure like the full reasons behind it, you know. But like he's definitely like a very, very high caliber player that people are underrating.
You think Zero could become the best North American player like later this year if he continues to perform and grow like this?
I think
is that crown for the taking?
I think he could definitely like North American player like in general or flex DPS.
No, in general. I mean, we're just making up stuff here on the podcast, but theoretically, if you were like I think Zero, you know, obviously being really young as well, it's like a new generation of player coming in, and you know, could really become like a standout name in the scene. And I think we saw last year how Zero was just making a name for himself from like start to finish last year, and now it just continues to grow. You know, amazing performance in the finals here, player of the match. Like Ocie said, match sugar free as well. I feel like Zero with that level of drive could just continue to improve. And you know, you don't want to invoke the names of like Proper and Lip and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, we're looking for players who can take on Korean, you know, dominant players like that. And maybe Zero could become one of those players, right? That could really try to take it to them. Should North America ever be able to stand up against Korea, right? Like that's kind of what you're looking for, right? You're looking for individuals like that with that drive who can continue to improve and take them on mechanically as well, right? So, you think Zero could become best player in North America maybe later this year?
Possible?
I mean, yeah, I think it's possible. Like, you know, I think definitely has the skill and I think has the drive. I think though, like you'd probably have to dwindle it down to like DPS player, and like, I mean that's just really tough. I mean, there's actually a quite a few really good players in NA at the moment. So I think it's in the realm of possibility. Like if you told me that like that happened, I wouldn't be shocked. Like, but I think there's obviously some players that are
look, we're building a team
more
Matt.
consistent.
We're building a team to take on Korea. And I feel like Zero could be part of that team down the line. Could be part of the 5-man that could take on Falcons and Crazy Raccoon and Zeta. I guess you have to include Zeta now. It's a trio.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I would say like the one weakness I'm seeing with Zera, at least potential weakness, is just flexibility. That's it. Because like I think he's proven himself on Tracer and Genji already. I would go as far as to say that on Tracer and Genji, if he can play those heroes, he can actually like put up a fight against Koreans, right? Like maybe not like straight up diff them, but like he can put up a fight, he won't fall over. You know, he already showed that he can put up a fight against Sugar Free as well. I think Sugar Free has proven more so that he has like a bit of a wider hero pool and he can play in a lot of different ways in a lot of different metas, so on. I want to see Zera continue to prove that as well, right? And I want to see Zera gain experience potentially on other heroes, see how he performs there, or if he'll kind of try and play more into his niche of like, okay, Tracer, Genji, if I can play those, I'm good. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out as time goes on. But I definitely think like he's one of those players that, again, you're saying if you're going to build an NA roster to beat Korea, he wouldn't be a bad pick. In fact, honestly, if you're going with only NA players, you know, for DPS line, it isn't uncommon to have 3 and have like a hitscan DPS in there. You could do something like have Zera and Sugar Free on the same team, and then like maybe put put a hit scan DPS on top of that, right? Like that's what I would personally go with. But it's interesting. It's interesting to see how that's gonna play out.
Yeah. Finally, then I guess we have to talk about SSG here. I think at the end of the day, if you're SSG, it's a little disappointing. The fact you're able to finish second here. They look like the best teams in the playoffs. Looked like the best team in the regular season, just taking that 5-map loss to Liquid, where they played a lot of Wrecking Ball here. What is something you guys would kind of like want to see, Space Station? I don't want to say like, I don't want to hit this much like what they did wrong, more as I want to be like, what do you think they could improve going into the major that like would make their team better? What do you guys think could make their team better at the major? If they added something to their game or improved upon some of their play.
I mean, I almost feel like they kind of. I wouldn't overreact to this loss if I was SSG. I mean, you slipped up once basically in the entire stage of NA. I wouldn't overreact and be like, what do we have to do? Like, do we have to go like and change stuff? Like, I think you're perfectly fine. I mean, you just kind of ran into a team that was really hot. I mean, they already had played 5 maps coming in, right? They didn't have to really kind of get warmed up. You remember that broadcast started really late, so like we actually were later than like we went like way later than we usually do for NA. So you're sitting around like you're waiting till like 8 o'clock East Coast, right, to just kind of play, and the other team's already coming off the series. So like I wouldn't overreact to it that much, to be honest. I think this team's gonna be totally fine. I think probably just keep kind of like going down the path and drilling what you're drilling, and I would probably just focus more on like, okay, how are we going to use the ban system, at Champions Clash, and really kind of get into the games that you want to?
I think it's just about continuing to try and play around like what Kellen's really good at on the tank. I feel like that's what SSG already are doing. Like it's just, Kellen's good at like the dive heroes and stuff. We're just going to try and keep Kellen on that. That's really going to depend on the next patch. That's it. It's just, okay, what's their prep going to be for the next patch? How are we going to ban and work around Kellen? I don't think Kellen is a weakness necessarily, because he is like, his Winston was honestly pretty impressive, but we'll see what they do. It's just, it all comes down to that prep.
And the Champions Clash map pool is completely different. So like, taking stuff from this one, I mean, just looking on Wikipedia for the Champions Clash map pool, it looks like Runasapi's in there. New Queen Street is in there.
Ilios, that's great for SSG.
Circuit Royale is back, and Gibraltar. So like there's
a breath of fresh air.
King's Row is in there, right? So there's a lot of maps that we haven't seen these teams play in there. So I also think whatever you saw here, I would take with potentially a grain of salt moving forward, right? Depending on how it goes. It also looks like at least here that they've split the hybrid and Flashpoint. That's just the 5 game modes. So
yeah, good for Korea, but I guess also good for SSG there. Rak, what are your kind of like final thoughts here on SSG? How they played in the finals? What do you think about their team?
I think they're a very solid team still. I think, like, of course, Kellen's like a really good monkey, and I forget which map that got banned at, but of course you could kind of see when they got taken off their like foot, something like that. But
it was Root. It's been on
Root, yeah. And then I think like the final map, maybe you throw out the Ash ban there or something. But other than that, I think, they probably made it to China. They're like, oh crap, we made it to China already. Maybe they slowed down, but I do think Nightmare played like very, very good. So I wouldn't be like worried about them going into LAN. Of course, if they get like a nice boot camp, all that stuff, they should be top of their game.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on stage 1? Overall, I think it was a great final weekend there. Really competitive matches, really fun in both regions. 2 different metas, of course, cater to different strengths. But any like final thoughts on the stage overall? Anything you'd like to see changed? We kind of hit on the map pool already. I think great feedback. Maybe splitting up Flashpoint with push, maybe combine those two. But it was a pretty good stage overall, right?
Yeah. I hope some of the other teams in NA, like, we obviously have a really strong, I think, top 4. I hope some of the other teams, though, look at, like, what Nightmare's achieved. And obviously, Nightmare has players who've played, like, at that really high level in the past. But, like, to see, like, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Like, hey, we get together and work pretty hard. Like, we can sneak into this top, 3, top 4. Like, it's not like they're unbeatable. So I hope that makes it a little bit closer, because Yeah, I mean, there are some games in NA that are, you know, you have some of those top teams against some of the ones that are mid down to the bottom, and it could be pretty lopsided. I mean, EMEA, it seemed like it was pretty like even those series where obviously the Ultimates is only winning 2 games during the season, those games are close. Like they're competitive. So I think hoping for NA that it kind of starts to look a little bit more like EMEA, where even down to like, you know, Vision would make series, you know, interesting potentially, right? They won 7 maps overall, right? The teams at the bottom of NA are kind of not even taking maps, right? So I hope NA becomes deeper, you know, kind of rivals EMEA.
Yeah, that's fair. I think overall, from like a viewer perspective, though, this stage actually felt watchable. I'm gonna be real. It felt impossible to follow last season, especially like
Yeah.
if you're thinking from the perspective of a casual viewer. I think it was so difficult. Even like myself, when I didn't follow a region, I felt like it just everything moved so fast. It was just each stage was a quick little tournament after all the open qualifiers and everything. Getting rid of that, just like, yeah, we had Swiss at the very beginning, but now it's just going to be relegation and everything. It feels like people can actually follow their favorite teams. It feels like we had a real season. It was what we needed,
Yeah.
really. And I think those improvements are great. You know, sure, some bumpy situations here and there. I know the admins ran into issues in both NA, EMEA. Like there's always going to be issues, I think, but honestly, I can't complain too much about this first stage because I think it is like a 300%, 400% improvement overall.
Yeah, I mean, last year was tough because there just weren't that many broadcasts, right? So like you were just kind of tuning in, you were just like getting a little bit of a splice of kind of like what was going on. But uh I mean also just kind of like yeah, I do give them a lot of props, right? To be able to turn around from Owl to a completely open ecosystem to then kind of like going into this, right? It is like a huge shift. But I think it's been overall like a net positive for just like the Overwatch competitive scene in that way more people are able to get involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something we actually talked about following the announcement at DreamHack, and it's something that we've both been hitting on. Ocie, I feel like it's just like this format change is like feels so much better to watch and follow and schedule matches, stuff like that. So it's been really fun to kind of see how it turned out to be like a really good viewer experience. And you get to see the best teams like play more often. That was my biggest thing from last year, just like seeing the best teams play more. Because last year there were so many parts of the system that like allowed the best teams to just skip forward. It's just like, oh, you don't have to play in Swiss, and you only have to play 2 matches in groups because you're so dominant in groups anyway. So then we're just seeing the best teams like what a few weekends a year. Now it's like, hey, come back every week. Watch SSG, watch Liquid. You know, these are the best teams. They're the best players, and I think that's really good as well to just allow the viewer to follow the best teams in the region.
I forgot Rack. Are you not going to China now?
Oh my god.
Yeah, no, I won't be making it to China probably. Most likely, unless like something really crazy comes out, then yeah, I probably won't be going.
It's tough.
Sorry, man.
It's
Don't worry, you're not missing out. Don't worry, man. You're not missing out.
Yeah,
We're not going
like
either.
it, but...
We're gonna be in Los Angeles. I'm gonna be sleeping in Johnny's.
Yeah, we're not
living
going to
room.
be there either, to be honest. So don't worry.
Okay.
It'll just be the teams. It'll just be the teams playing. All right.
Yeah.
It's a nice little recap there for stage 1. Of course, every time we have to do player of the week. Matt, you usually have a crazy story. So if you don't have a crazy story, I'll let you wait for that. If not, for player of the week, Solomon, I sent this clip in the Discord here as well. We did something a little different yesterday, Matt. We actually played a new game that's not Overwatch.
Okay, so hold on. Let me pause this right here.
All right.
This is not new for me. I have been trying to tell Johnny that other games exist outside of Overwatch, and that's okay, and that you can have fun playing other games other than
Ocie,
Overwatch.
Rack can relate to me. Overwatch is life. But yeah, we played some Civ here, and you're trying to get me to play other games. Custa joined us. It was you, me, and Custa on stream. Played some Civ.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to highlight here is all the yellow armies on the left-hand side there, under Kerma. And that is Custa learning that, just like in real life, going to war actually has consequences for a civilization. You cannot just warmonger and try to eliminate people. And so what Custa did in his first hour of gameplay was that he took on debt for his civilization. He spent all his money to purchase armies that died, and then he got himself into a bit of a hole here. So Custa learned the hard way that warmongering is not the way. I did the same thing just a day earlier. But yeah, so I guess this segment is just like Custa was not the player of the week. He was the opposite of player of the week.
Yeah, Jose Rizal was war. He was hungry for war.
That was our AI we played with. Yeah,
he was an AI, but yeah, Johnny was very. Well, I feel bad for Scott here because we didn't really give him an explanation on how to play. He just
we just said just play the game, and he tried.
Yeah, I kind of settled near all of his resources, so I took all of them, and then he didn't really figure out that he needed to build more towns. So that's kind of where he struggled. He did make an epic comeback though.
He did.
This game is way too addicting.
It is.
Just being able to play this for just long periods of time. Yeah, I mean, this is tons of fun. Johnny, Johnny also was allied with the AI, so Johnny just kept going to war with Scott, which was kind of fucked up.
Well, because you freaked me out because you were I didn't scout your base, and so you were just sitting down south, and you were building an army, and I was like, I need the AI to help me out.
Yeah.
Turns out the AI was garbage. Like, just straight up not helpful at all.
Because, like, Fog of War, like in RTS, they obviously didn't know what I was doing down there, but they could see that I was leading in terms of the military acquisition without seeing any of my military.
I just heard a word of Matt's army growing
down there. Yeah. I was also paying off tribes to attack Johnny's base, but
which I didn't know, but I later figured out that you were in fact.
This was going to be up there for my player of the week. I think a real player of the week probably Zera. Zera had himself a really good week. Zera and Lethal. Also, former supreme leader of the Overwatch League, John Spector. He finally hit plat, so he tweeted. He's like, and he messaged me. He's like, I better be Bren's player of the week. So. John,
that's all you have to do these days. Just message Matt.
Yeah, just message me if you want to
I'm
shout
happy
out.
for John. Happy for John.
It's like at BlizzCon, I had dinner at some Mexican restaurant. And some guy was like, "Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of like Blizzard stuff. I hear this thing going on." I was like, "Oh, you want to come?" And I literally didn't even have tickets to give this guy. But
what are you talking
about?
Yeah,
I'd love to go. So like I started to I got him tickets to the last BlizzCon. That was pretty funny.
Okay. A delayed player of the week for you to giving BlizzCon tickets to someone you met.
Yeah. Maybe he'll still be working there in 2026 when we all go.
I'm just slowly watching Custa send armies towards this base that he eventually lost. Anyway, yeah. So we tried other games there, but yeah, more reasonable player of the week, Zero, I suppose. Let's give it to Zero. Sounds nice to me. Sounds good.
Oh, there's what is
Ocie Rack, can we interest you in some Civ, or is it just about the Overwatch grind?
Nah,
I actually do like Civ.
You do?
I actually do like Civ, yeah.
Did you play Civ 6 a lot? Or others?
Yeah, I played Civ 6 a little bit.
We might have to get Ocie involved in our Civ games. We don't know what we're doing, so you can teach us.
Breaking news.
Oh, yeah?
Esports cosmetics.
Oh, I've seen that in the game. I'm a cosmetic freak. I already knew about those.
Yeah. The Crimson Esports bundles.
Oh,
there you go.
Looks nice.
That's like this is a recolor, I guess, of the that summer Genji, right? And then this is a recolor of that royal
that's a Gladiator's Mercy skin, I think.
Gladiator's Mercy, but they still, I mean, dude, it comes with like the icon and the name card. They look pretty sweet.
Yeah. Oh, did you see the La Seraphim bundle?
Yeah.
The new ones? What were the heroes? It was Ashe, Juno, Diva, Mercy,
Kiri, I think.
Kiri,
right?
Was it Kiri again?
Illari.
Yeah.
Somebody had asked me about Le Seraphim, and I was like, I am the wrong person to ask. I was like, I know they're in the game. They're the song that they had is not released. I heard that too.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about K-pop. I'm going to be.
That about sums up my commentary for this whole thing as well.
Whenever they
I'm really happy for everyone who's happy.
Whenever they ask me to read about the anime skins as well, I'm just like I've never watched an anime, so I can't really comment on how awesome this is. But I usually say something like, "Yeah, it's super exciting."
I also did just open the game to check the bundle, and the
Yeah.
old LA Valiant Ana skin, the Howers, is part of that bundle. So if anyone
Yo.
was missing that, yeah, that was like a really old one. You can't.
Wait, LA Valiant Ana?
Yeah, it's like the Howers. I can take a screenshot of it. It's like this is like a super rare skin.
Oh,
This
then
one.
yeah, this is one thing that I actually thought about, but Bailey already on top of it, clarifying on Twitter that like the bundle's not part of any of the crowdfunding.
Yeah.
No. Oh, you get all these?
Yeah.
Bundle,
Well,
yeah.
that's also mine because
Yo.
I already had 2 of the things. So the Goat
Yeah,
Brig,
yeah.
the Wicked Moira.
That's pretty good though.
What is this from?
I
Is this
love
on
It's,
I
Valiant?
love
it's like
in-game
it's
currencies.
really old.
Yeah. I love in-game currencies because like I'm just like, yeah, this is a really good deal. I have no idea what 2,800 tokens transfers into in terms of dollars.
I think it's like
but-
$28.
Yeah. They just
okay,
divide
so
by
I get
1,000
what? You got like
or 100.
5 legendary skins for $28. Yeah.
Well, it's also I think
Yeah.
it's because my things. I already have
Because
2
you
of
already
them
bought those, so it's even more
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably more. So yeah, there you go. If you want to check out the Crimson Owl Mega Bundle, there you go.
We need to do what League of Legends does and sell like $200 skins.
True.
well, like the
Apex-
Valorant
didn't
Dragon
Apex-
set.
Yeah, those people seem
Apex
to
had
be
like
on League of
a-
Legends.
I think Apex had like 100 something or $300 like death box.
I don't
Yeah.
think we need this, fellas. I don't think we need this. Although
do.
someone would buy it. Someone would eventually
Yeah.
buy it. But it would not be me.
God, I also see a lot of players like how Ocie you're talking about before, like they're tweeting the BlizzCon announcements with like Overwatch World Cup stuff, and I would be like, hey, let's pump the brakes on that a little bit. We're far away. Just
I did
because
it too, Matt.
BlizzCon doesn't
I
mean
did it all caps.
doesn't mean we automatically get a World Cup.
Yeah, I think like just to be straight up, from the information that I know, that might just depend on the terms in the re-signing of the EWC deal, whether they allow it or not. I'm 99% sure it's just because I'm pretty sure they were kind of like not wanting 2 World Cups, as far as I know. So I mean that makes some sense. But
You'd also just rename
yeah.
it, run the same program, and just
they might rename
right?
it. Yeah, they might
The
actually
Nations
rename
Cup.
it. The
Yeah.
Nations Cup or something, but yeah, I would assume if it comes back, it'll probably be under a different name to
A
try
global
and like
celebration, yeah, some kind of
not step on this on the toes of EWC. But I do think that like I know they're re-signing that though, like this year after this EWC they're re-signing that. So I don't know what the terms will be there, but that's probably what it'll be depend on. I think like that's why they also didn't mention anything about Overwatch World Cup. Like you would think like maybe they would tease at it or something. Like I think they don't know yet, maybe.
I think they know they're having BlizzCon. I think that's all they know.
Yeah.
I think they probably have an idea what game stuff would be able to show. But yeah, like in terms of, I mean, it's literally like I just found like an article on it. It's like as kind of vague as it could be. It's like opening ceremony, in-depth panels, the Dark Moon Fair, like competition and gameplay. Like you know what I mean? Like it's just kind of like the stuff we know like would be at BlizzCon regardless of what it looked like. So yeah, I don't think there's anything like too specific there yet. I mean, it's also in 2026, so we
it's
got
really far away.
Yeah,
I don't care. Let's go, World
no,
Cup, bring it back.
I care. I care because I don't want to have to talk about
Let's
this every
go.
week until September of
USA.
2026. So let's
Dude.
all. Wait, why are you chanting for USA? You're
Kevster,
Swedish.
Soro, let's get Sweden involved. Come on, man. We got so much talent. I want to see them combine forces. It'd be great.
I want to see it come back too. I'd really
Exactly.
I love the Overwatch World Cup. It'd be cool if it came back, but please don't tweet me about this every week till September of 2026.
We're gonna do a reminder each week on Plat Chat to
The road to
let's bring
Overwatch
back.
World Cup. We'll make like one of those like little bar graphics, and it'll just be so minuscule each week that it fills up.
we'll do a countdown. I'm starting a Twitter account with a countdown. This
Yeah, how many days
until the
away
Overwatch
are we,
World Cup is
Solomon,
back.
until September 2026?
Oh my god, I don't want to go there. Let's wrap up this episode. Rakattack has more important things to do, getting it ranked and getting a second
I just
second
gotta-
galactic weapon. I need to get my first.
We're only 550 days to BlizzCon.
That's
To the
close.
Overwatch World Cup, you mean?
Basically,
Yeah,
there.
yeah, to that.
Okay, sounds good.
That would
Hey,
be like
OC
9 heroes from now.
Ocie, Rack, Matt, thank you for joining us for another.
Yep, there it is. Countdown.
This is so wow. All right, it's been another episode of Plat Chat Overwatch. Thank you all for joining us for this episode, and we'll see you next week. Well, we'll talk about Korea next week, by the way. I don't know if I actually said that, but considering that Korea ends this upcoming weekend, we'll talk about Korea when it concludes next week. So, yeah, thank you for joining us for another episode of Plat Chat Overwatch. We'll see you next week. Take care.